Hello everyone and welcome to this special session as part of GTR India 2021 Virtual, Mitigating Fraud in Trade Finance, a special case study from our friends at MonetaGo. My name's Jeff Ando, I'm Director of Content and Production at GTR, and I'm delighted to introduce Kashinath Katakdhond, Managing Director for India at MonetaGo, who will be leading us through this segment of the event. Kashinath will be sharing his thoughts on this topic, including a brief presentation, after which we'll have a short Q&A as we seek to delve into the key issues around this most relevant of recent topics. Welcome, Kashinath.
Thank you, Jeff, for having me today as one of the speakers at GTR India event. Really appreciate that. And let me start giving a background. MonetaGo is a US-based startup. We are based out of New York as the headquarters. Now we have two offices outside US. One is in India and the another one is in Singapore. And we started with our flagship product, the secure financing product, which provides invoice fingerprinting to prevent duplicate financing of the invoices. Then we also do in India a specific value-added service, and that is the invoice authentication and the e-way bill verification. If you look at from the lending or the any financier who is lending or doing invoice discounting, one of the critical factors that they look is getting a comfort level whether the invoices which are being presented to them for financing, they are not double financed. That's a major risk, right? Worldwide, this is a major risk. Second part is how do you know that the invoices which have been presented to a financier, whether they are genuine or not? The genuineness of the invoices is another critical aspect in the invoice discounting space. The third part is a lender gets more comfort level when they know that the goods have actually moved from the supplier to the buyer, so that the underlying goods which are reflected in the invoices which are getting discounted, there is actual movement of the good from the supplier to the buyer. All these three are value-added services or flagship product. Any lender who's interested in doing invoice fingerprinting. So what are the challenges, especially in the receivable financing? One of the key things is the double financing issue, which is a major risk for all the financiers who are part of the invoice financing space. The genuineness of the invoices is another aspect that needs to be managed. And fake and fraudulent invoices, we have seen many fake fraudulent invoices which are being presented for financing. Just looking at the invoice or physical copy or a scanned copy of the invoice doesn't determine the genuineness of these invoices. And the third part is getting the comfort level for the financiers once they get a comfort level saying that the goods have actually moved from the supplier to the buyer. This is what we address in India. This is in production, as I said, since March 2018. So how do we do the invoice fingerprinting solution? It's a real-time registry that we have established in India. We eliminate the risk of duplicate financing through this particular solution. Where if there are same or similar invoices are presented by multiple financiers, we determine the whether it is already financed or not. We share that information back to the financiers through an API, through a web portal, or through any other mechanism. And that's how this particular product is based on the distributed ledger technology. The second part, as I said, we are in India in 2017. India launched the GST network. So what it means is that goods and services tax network or database that has been created by Government of India, it is now mandatory. Any supplier who raises any tax invoice on the buyer needs to register this invoice with the GSTN database or the portal. The good part in India is GSTN has allowed us or third parties to access this data to do the authentication of the invoices. That's how we do the authentication of the invoices with the GSTN data, so that you are looking at the tax invoice against the submitted to you for financing against the tax information. That's the beauty of this particular solution. The third part is that we also do the e-way bill verification. Again, in April 2018, Government of India made it mandatory for the issuance of e-way bill for any movement of goods from the supplier to the buyer. Now, MonetaGo as a third party can access this e-way bill information, can determine the genuineness of the e-way bills which are submitted for financing, and we can get the entire data in the digital form. If you look at any physical copy or a scanned copy of the invoice, what happens is even if you use OCR technology, you will not be able to pull out the information in their digital form 100% of the time. What we are doing is we are getting an actual dump of the e-way bill and the tax invoice from the GSTN and from the e-way bill databases, and making it available to our customers on real-time basis. That's the beauty of this particular solution. You get all the information in real time. The third part, as I said, there are three exchanges. How did we start this particular solution or the product? One thing is that there are three TREX exchanges. One is RXL, promoted by NSE and SEBI. Second one is InvoiceSmart, promoted by Axis Bank, which is one of the major private sector banks in India. And the third one is M1 Exchange, promoted by Mind Solutions. What happened is when all three exchanges started, they were competing against each other. None of the exchanges wanted to share their supplier information. So what happened is the same supplier and the buyer got registered on multiple exchanges. It so happened that one of the invoices got financed on multiple exchanges. And that's when we realized that it's a double financing is a major risk. It's a systemic risk. So we all three exchanges came together and put in place the MonetaGo solution to prevent duplicate financing of solution. This solution was implemented for the TREX exchanges, which are regulated by the Reserve Bank of India, which is the central bank in India. It is live since March 2018. This network has been up and running. We have processed more than a million transactions so far, and that's we are increasing it as we grow. Another thing is if you look at what we are trying to do with this particular solution is prevent double financing. Second part is authentication of the invoice details with the tax authority databases. Second part is none of our customers require any physical copy or a scanned copy of the invoice. We just need 5 digital data points through which we can do the authentication, fingerprinting, and that's the beauty of this particular solution. It prevents fraudulent invoice financing risk to the financiers. Not only that, but once you do a financing of the invoice, you can actually do a forensic audit of these particular invoices, whether these invoices which were presented to you, which you have financed as a financier, you can actually do a forensic audit and check whether these were genuine or not. That gives more comfort level to the financiers. What we are trying to do is bring in a straight through processing, simplify the entire invoice discounting process for our banks, for our NBFCs, fintech players, and the TREX exchanges. It helps in reducing the cost, time, and resources, especially involved in the invoice discounting space. The way in which our customers can connect to us is through API. We have a web-based portal as well. For small finances who need not integrate, they can go through the web portal. And for the banks in India, we have a strategic tie-up with Swift India, a partnership with Swift India. That has allowed us to access all the banks through the Swift India channel. And we have seen some good progress, which I'll talk to you in a few seconds. This is the way we work in terms of how our network is working. So if you look at it, MonetaGo is the repository. We go and source the information, the tax authorities, we are connected to the TREX exchanges, and all the banks in India can come through this Swift India server. Not only that, but also the NBFCs and fintechs can directly connect and utilize the MonetaGo services in India. So this is how the network works in India. These are some of the major players, and this is the some of the media's release items in India for MonetaGo having its presence. So this presentation that I talked about, giving a little bit brief about what is MonetaGo and how we are managing this.
Many thanks, Kashinath. Some fascinating insights and much food for thought. If I may, I'd like to ask a few questions. So I understand last year saw you surpass over 1 million transactions in the Indian market, with more and more banks and alternative finance platforms being added from a range of products. How do you foresee your growth strategy for the market? Is there a limit to this, or is there a specific target that you have in mind?
I would say yes, I agree completely with you that we have processed more than a million transactions so far, and I see exponential growth in this particular market. And the primary reason for this is in India, government is trying to address the delayed payment issues for the MSMEs, and for the marginalized sector. And with that particular focus in mind, Government of India is encouraging adoption of the TREDS platforms in India. They are encouraging the corporates, they are encouraging the government departments, they are encouraging the public sector units in India to adopt TREDS exchanges so that the delayed payment issues for the MSMEs could be addressed in a very timeful manner. Since we are already tied up with TREDS exchanges, as the TREDS exchanges grow exponentially, the growth of MonetaGo platform is also exponential. That is one of the primary reasons. Second part is in India we have seen large banks, some of the large public sector banks and some of the large private sector banks in India have adopted the MonetaGo solution through the Swift India partnership. As I said, in India we have an exclusive partnership with Swift India, and more banks are coming on this particular platform. Almost like 70 to 80% of the invoice discounting volume is coming through the banks. These large banks are coming on the platform through the Swift India channel. And that's another reason for the growth. The third part is we have been successful in onboarding significantly important non-banking financial companies, as well as the fintech players, which are now mushrooming in India. They are primarily into lending to the MSMEs and the other players. They are adopting the platform in India. All these three reasons give us a comfort level for the exponential growth of this particular product in India.
Just a follow-up question. I mean, how instrumental has your partnership with Swift India and its financial messaging system proved in providing access to the Indian banking system? What have been the key advantages of that you can refer to?
I think that's a good question. As I said, in India, we have a very exclusive partnership with Swift India. What it means is as you know, Swift adopts ISO 20022 standards. That's one of their primary goals. So the solution that we have created is based on the ISO 20022 solution. It standardizes the messages between the banks and the Swift India that helps us in connecting and adopting or getting more banks on the platform. As I said, Swift India has been very proactive in getting some of the large public sector banks as well as private sector banks. In fact, we have been getting more queries recently from foreign banks as well as small finance banks in India to come and adopt the platform. That's one of the key things, coming through the Swift India partnership. Not only that, but also the India example. India has been an example. We have been working with Swift Global to standardize these messages and make it available as an API service for the global banks. So the focus is not just our partnership in India has not only helped us in India, but we are also looking at a partnership with Swift globally, which will allow us to roll out the MonetaGo solution to all the global banks, focusing primarily right now on the Asia Pacific region and slowly expanding it to other geographies outside India.
Looking back into the history of this technology, originally you were on Hyperledger before a move to Corda. What was the rationale for the move over to another platform? What have been the key benefits of that move?
Yeah, I think if you look at it, right, both Hyperledger Fabric and R3 Coda, they are both the platforms are very good, right? What we have seen is that more and more our customers are adopting R3 Coda platform. And that has been one of the primary drivers for us to shift or pivot from Hyperledger to R3 Coda platform. As long as the customers demand a particular platform, we are more open, more keen to adopt that kind of a platform. And that we have seen a rapid adoption of the R3 Coda platform by the banks. If you look at it, more than 200 financial institutions are already adopted R3 Coda platform. So we are looking at that kind of, since we are dealing with banks, all our banks are more on the R3 Coda platform. That's one of the reasons why we have adopted the R3 Coda platform. Second part is when you look at a blockchain or a DLT solution, you have to look at the cost of development and also the cost of operating cost for the customers. Coda has adopted certain new features that they have brought into the platform. One of them is sharing of the nodes. So that brings down the cost. You don't need to have a dedicated node unless your volumes demand that. But by sharing the nodes, you are able to reduce the operating cost for the customers. And that's another driver for us to pivot from Hyperledger Fabric or Hyperledger to R3 Coda.
Very, very interesting. Now, just a final question from me. As we know, the issue of trade finance fraud, the need to prevent these instances, has dominated media headlines recently, not least at GTR, of course. I understand that you recently entered into a partnership with a Singaporean company, Good, I think is the correct pronunciation, to implement these solutions across Asia more broadly. Tell us more about these expansion plans and how you see them developing.
Yeah, so if you look at it, right, MonetaGo, we provide solutions which are focused on the prevention of fraud in the trade finance space, as well as digitizing the trade finance workflows. Good is a specialist in trade technology and has a strong background in building the trade facilitation platforms for the governments and businesses across Asia and Africa. Our partnership with Good allows MonetaGo to plug their fraud detection solutions into the national single window projects and trade-related platforms developed by Good in Singapore and elsewhere in Asia. This will help more governments and banks address the issues relating to double financing of invoices in trade finance and documentation. MonetaGo is also horizontally expanding its product offerings for Singapore and other APEC markets. One of the things is in India, we started with invoice financing, focus more on the invoices. Now we are expanding the product offering to include not only the invoices, but also the purchase orders or the bills of lading, as well as the warehouse receipts. So the protocol, the horizontal expansion of the product offering is helping us drive our partnership with Good. Our primary focus is working with global platforms where we do see synergies to create a win-win partnership which benefits our customers and help in trade frauds related to trade finance.
Very interesting, and be great to see how those plans develop. Many thanks to Kashinath for his insights, and thank you to our audience for listening in. Please do feel free to get in touch with Kashinath and the MonetaGo team via the event platform if you have any questions, or indeed do continue the conversation via our discussion forum and the chat function. There are various other sessions taking place throughout the course of the rest of today, with all of yesterday's sessions also now available on demand, so please try and tune into those, and also visit our various sponsor and exhibition stands with plenty of excellent content and connections to be found there also. Until then, take care, and we'll see you next time.